Hello everyone, this is Deltrox and I am back again today and I'm going to be talking about weaving and animation canceling. And so I'm basically just gonna get right up into the thick of things here. Heads up, by the way, I am using a new video editor for this video, so hopefully things look better, but there is a chance that they will look worse. But light attack weaving, sorry, my throat is dying. Okay. Okay, so light attack weaving is something that players will do in between abilities. So if you see here, I will light attack, cast my Endless Hail, light attack Caltrops, light attack Venom Claw, light attack Caltrops. And so it's something that DPS players do to boost their damage, because this game has something called a global cooldown. So if you see here, and I just sit here and I spam the 3 button as fast as I can, you can see how often it's like pressing. It'll still only cast the actual ability once per second. And so light attacks are not on this global cooldown. They have the cooldown of their own. So you see, if I'm clicking my left mouse button like crazy here, obviously I'm not just attacking at the speed that I'm clicking, but I am attacking faster than the cooldown here. And so if you watch a little bit closer, I'll weave a little bit faster on this Venom Claw ability. You can see that I can basically do both of them at the same time. And so it's essentially allowing you to have another source of damage every second. This is also the general concept between why we use so many dots, because as you can see, Endless Hail ticks twice a second, ticks like crazy, and then if I also light attack and use my Venom Claw, I'm getting a whole bunch of damage ticks every time, every second. So basically today I am going to do my best to go through and show weaving both light and heavy attacks with all the different DPS weapons, and then I'll also talk about block canceling when that matters and how tanks need to weave as well. So first, I'm on the bow, so I'll talk about the bow. The 2 most important bow abilities are Endless Hail and Poison Injection, and then Caltrops is almost always cast on the bow bar, so it's basically a bow skill at this point. The biggest thing to note about these abilities is that they have pretty long cast times that can be cancelled with bar swapping, but it's not worth it to bar swap cancel every ability. So if you see here, if I try and cancel the animation on my Endless Hail, my Poison Injection, and my Caltrops, it'll look something like this. And that's just not efficient. Bar swapping does take a certain amount of time, and so you want to try and minimize your bar swaps. You also cannot block during a bar swap. You'll see that your block goes down for just a bit of a second, but in many situations that is very important. And believe me, as a tank, it will get you killed a lot. So just keep that in mind when you are bar swapping, is that you can't block when you're doing it. So if something like, the best example I have for this is in HRC, the Warrior has his heavy attack called the 1,000 Cuts, which hits a whole bunch over a period of time, over like 2 or 3 seconds. And if you try and bar swap during the 1,000 Cuts, you'll just die, because that quarter of a second that your block drops is more than enough time for that ability to kill you, even if you're at full health. Okay, so back to light attack weaving. Man, my voice is not cooperating with me today. But back to light attack weaving. The way that I personally do it is I light attack and then I'll cancel the light attack animation with an ability. So if you see, if I'm just light attacking here, you see my hand goes all the way back, redraws the bow every time. And bows have very quick light attacks, so it's generally easier to weave on a bow than just about anything else. But if you see, I can cancel this ability a little bit, this animation. So instead of like putting my hand back on the bow, as soon as I let the arrow go, I can go into my ability. So this just saves a little bit of time. Like I said, bows are the fastest light attack, and so it doesn't matter as much with bows as it does with something like a two-hander, which has the slowest light attack, I believe. But it is something to keep in mind because nearly every stamina class uses a bow, and so it's really important to get good at weaving. So the more difficult part of bows is your actual abilities, because Caltrops and Endless Hail specifically have really long cast times. So if you see, if I try and go too fast here, I'll just completely skip my weaves and some of my abilities completely. Like right there, I pressed my Venom Claw button, but it didn't go off because I was trying to go too fast. And I tried to weave in between my Endless Hail and my Poison Injection, but because the Endless Hail animation is so long, it ended up not actually going through. So when you're still getting used to being a stamina DPS, really just wait until kind of you start lowering your bow after shooting it. So you'll see now, like right after the arrow fires, is when you'll be able to actually light attack. And so just don't go too fast, because it's really easy to just skip that light attack completely. And light attacks, if you're in a proper build, unlike I am right now, will usually hit for about 10k without a crit, and so then about 18k with a crit, and so that is a ton of damage to be skipping if you're missing it between those two abilities. So now I'll talk about bow heavy attacks, which is my least favorite heavy attack of all the different animations. It just, I don't know what to say about it. It's like the light attack, except a lot slower. And you notice that like when I put my hand back to like redraw another arrow, it's really slow, and the wind up animation on it is really long. Like, I start holding my mouse now, and then I can release it. So it's a couple of seconds for sure. And so then when you combine that with something like Endless Hail and Poison Injection, and it just really slows down your rotation. So if ever you can, try not to light attack on your, or heavy attack on your bow bar. It just, it sucks, to be honest. Final thing I want to talk about, actually let's move on to the other weapon types first before I talk about bar swap canceling and things like that. So next up is going to be dual wield. So I'll put on my Vicious Ophidian dual wield here. I don't have any dual wield skills unlocked, but the biggest thing is twin slashes or rending slashes. When you're using that ability, wait until your blades actually like swipe in for the first time. So you do this thing where your blades will like swipe in and then you'll like pull them out. You want to make sure that you don't start your next light attack until you actually hear the blades hitting. It's a really obvious sound. It's like a squelching sound almost when you do it. And so it's pretty obvious, but just keep an eye on that. And so dual wield are also extremely quick light attacks, which is one of the reasons that many people prefer it over two-hander, because they have very similar light attacks to bows. And so if you see, like, it hits really quick, really easy. So I am actually hitting my light attack here along with my Venom Claw, even though it doesn't even look like I'm doing the light attack animation at all. you can see that my character kind of twitches a little bit before I go. And basically what it is that right now in my left hand I have my dagger, which when I am weaving like this, it kind of twitches forward a little bit. Let's see if we can get a good angle on this. Here, I wonder if actually in first person you'll be able to see this. Yeah, so you see here, my dagger just twitches forward ever so slightly. And that's how you know that your light attack went through. And so it's really easy. It's basically like as soon as you start moving your arms is when you can go ahead and start your next ability. If you're still unsure, or if you're playing on a little bit higher ping, right now I'm on 110 ping, which is pretty good. You can wait until you see the light attack number show up. And so you see occasionally you'll get 1 number, and then other times you'll get 2. That's when you're hitting with 1 weapon versus both of your weapons. Actually, no, that is straight up wrong. Ignore that. It's your enchantment, not your other weapon hitting. So if you see it, my enchantment hits, then it's 1 hit with each of my weapons alternating, and then it's my enchantment hitting again. So if one of these weapons was Nirnhoned or one was golded and the other wasn't, you would be able to see that the damage would change in between. Anyways, so now moving on to dual wield heavy attacks, which in my opinion has the best heavy attack in the game. You'll see that you kind of like twirl your weapons, and then as soon as you start moving forward is when you can move into your ability. And so it's really quick compared to the bow, and it's just really nice, especially if you're something like a stamina Dragon Knight, because they have a heavy attack rotation sometimes. You can do a light attack rotation, and the light attack rotation is generally better, but the heavy attack rotation is a lot easier. And so you just see twirl back. As soon as you start moving forward, you can go with your next ability. You can keep your finger on the trigger the entire time. You don't have to worry about timing it or anything. So like right now I just have my left mouse button held down the entire time, and I can still weave perfectly. And so now let's move on to two-handers, which in my opinion, two-handers have the worst animation weaving of any of the stamina weapons, but it's still not bad once you get used to it. Eventually I'll come out of combat here. Okay, so put on my two-hander, and so what I was saying earlier with the light attacks and watching the numbers come up is really important, I think, here. I'll go ahead and put on a couple dual wield skills. Because if you see, like, it doesn't look like I'm really doing anything right now, but you can still see that the damage is coming up from my ability hitting. Let me put Venom Claw back on, because that ability is way cheaper to use than Hardened Armor, and so I can actually show it more than like twice before I run out of resources. So, if you watch, hits and goes, it's really just kind of weird, to be honest. And with different abilities, it works differently, like reverse slice. But it's kind of like dual wield, where as soon as you start moving, you can go. It is, if you're going fast, really easy to just skip over it, though. So you want to be just watch for that number to pop up is honestly the best way to do two-handed, in my opinion, because the animation is so slight and people aren't quite used to it. The heavy attack on two-handers is a lot like the bows. It's kind of like a mix between the bow and the dual wield, because it's way longer than the dual wield, but it has that same kind of, as soon as you start moving forward, you're good to go. You do have to go a little bit further forward than with the dual wield. You see, it's kind of, once it gets past my head is when I'm good to cast my next ability. The two biggest skills to weave with dual wield are cleave and reverse slice here. The first ability, wrecking blow or uppercut, is a channel ability, and so it can be kind of funky to weave, but unfortunately I can't show that right now. I don't have any skill points there because I mainly use my two-hander for PvP and I don't like dizzying swing. But basically, just as a two-hander, watch for the numbers. That's my best advice I can give you. If you don't, it's really easy to skip over abilities. Like right there, I pressed my light attack weave, but it didn't go off because I just started my next ability too quickly. So just really watch for the number to pop up, get comfortable with that, and just get used to watching numbers. Okay, let's get on to the Magicka weapons now. So Magicka weapons are more or less the same. The light attack animation is exactly the same between lightning, fire, and ice staves, but the lightning attack, as you can see, has a different heavy attack than Inferno and ice stabs. Let me put on an Inferno to my back bar. Oh, I have an ice staff on my back bar already. Perfect. So as you can see, that's the heavy attack for ice and fire stabs, and then that is the lightning heavy attack. And so the lightning heavy attack is generally a lot stronger than fire and inferno, or fire and ice stabs, because of this passive right here, try focus. So shock staff heavy attacks damage nearby enemies for 50% of the damage done. At the second rank, that is 100% of the damage done. And so instead of heavy attacking one target, you're heavy attacking 3, 4, sometimes more, which is a lot better than the flame staff, which just does an additional 12%, I think, additional damage. And then the ice staff heavy attack, which is actually so bad that even if you use ice stabs, you take that passive so that you don't get that effect. But that's a topic for a different video. So the biggest thing to note with Destro stabs is that you kind of like lurch yourself forward when you light attack, and because of that, it's real quick to weave. You can weave both melee and ranged like that, but in general, like, I personally like weaving with Destro stabs more than bows, because the projectile is a lot easier to see. It's just as soon as you see that projectile like exist, so like if you're clear back here, like you can see it kind of start to appear on the tip of your staff. As soon as you get that to start, you can go ahead and cast your next ability. And so it's exactly the same way. Ice stabs are the hardest ones to see because they're white, but it's still pretty obvious. So yeah, just as soon as you see that projectile, go ahead and start your next ability. With heavy attacks, let's start with shock stabs. They kind of has this thing where they line up and then you see a kind of like pull back. That pull back is when you launch the actual heavy attack projectile, and so that's when you get your resources back and things like that. And as you can see, it does quite a bit more damage. So like each one of these ticks does 443, and then the big hit does 795 or 1193 there. And so anytime you use a shock heavy attack, as soon as you kind of let go, is when you can start your next ability. With Inferno and Ice Stabs, you'll kind of like wind up and then shoot the projectile. And so it's exactly the same as with a light attack. As soon as you see the projectile like fully form is when you can release the button and start your ability. And so, like I said, it's kind of hard to see on Ice Stabs, especially if you're in blockade. But you see just the tip of your staff just gets a little bit brighter. And so you saw right there, like it kind of starts. If I do that, it turns into a light attack rather than a fully charged heavy. You see it did 1700 damage there rather than the 1100 or the... that one was fully charged. Fully charged. Let's see if I can get like a half charge. That one did 1270. 1290. So yeah, just you want to make sure that it fully appears before you start your next ability. But as soon as it's appeared, you can go ahead and do your next thing. And you saw that I don't get the resources back until the projectile hits. So if you watch my magicka while I do this, if I cast wings while the projectile is in the air, my magicka actually comes back. So I'll get back the entire cost of wings because it'll wait until it hits to give me my magicka back. So yeah, like I said, Destro Stabs are pretty easy to weave with. Real nice, easy to see animation. As soon as you see that like streak of lightning or fire come off of your staff, you can go ahead and start your next ability. Even if you're clear back here or whatever. And so now let's talk about sword and shield weaving. So sword and shield weaving is something that tanks need to get good at because it's really the best way to proc. One second, let me actually put this on. It's really the best way to proc your enchants because as a tank you're going to be blocking all the time like this, and so your enchants will proc off of your pierce armor and your heroic slash, and I believe the other ones as well, but those ones aren't used very much. So if you see and I attack my crusher enchant, you see it to the left of my name there, it'll go off, and then if I use my low slash, it'll go off. So if you need to continue blocking but you need your enchant to come on, then use puncture, because as long as there isn't somebody else taunting, it won't cost you. You don't have a risk of over taunting. Over taunting will only ever happen if there's more than one person taunting. And pierce armor has a much lower cost than heroic slash, by about half. And pierce armor will also reapply your taunt, major fracture, breach, all that good stuff too. But in most situations where you can drop block for just a very short amount of time, it's about the same amount of time as a bar swap. So really similar to what I was talking about earlier with the warrior and the 1,000 cuts. You won't want to do this during an attack like that because your block will drop for just a short amount of time and it'll kill you. But the point that I'm trying to get to is that you can block cancel your light attacks. And so if you block and then you let go of block and then immediately after light attack and then immediately after block again, you'll see that this happens. So like I don't even move my weapon, but my block goes down, the damage happens, and my enchant reapplies. So it's super easy to do. Just you're holding your right mouse button and then you just click left and then click your right mouse button again. If you notice, you can hear me clicking my left mouse button, but if I have my right mouse button held down, I won't do anything. So you have to make sure to release your block and then light attack and then put your block back up. Like I said, it's about the same amount of time your block drops as a bar swap, so just be really careful there. Um, and then, final thing that I want to point out is that you can block cancel abilities. Most of the time, this is pretty useless because you can cast abilities while blocking, and so there's usually not a whole lot of reason to block to cancel an ability. But if you notice, my favorite one to demonstrate this on is actually Trap Beast. So if you do the Trap Beast animation, you throw your arm back, push your arm forward, and you throw the trap down. However, this can be cancelled. So if I press Trap Beast, which is 2 right now, and then immediately after I hold right button, you'll see this happen. So the trap still went down, everything still went exactly as normal, but I didn't do the animation. So what's important about that is that normally I can't cancel this animation by light attacking. Like, let me put these back on. If I press Trap Beast and then immediately start spamming light attack, you'll see here, that was as soon as it'll go. But if you Trap Beast, block, and then light attack, you still notice that it takes actually the same exact amount of time because the game still thinks you're in that animation. And so again, block canceling isn't really helpful. I've heard that at some higher levels that it can give you more time to like roll dodge or do your animations faster or something like that. But in general, it's just too difficult for the reward that it gives, which is basically nothing. So that is something to keep in mind, but it's not really something you'll ever have to do unless you're a tank, and then even when you're a tank, you just do it on your animation. I don't know how it works with abilities like jabs and Jesus Beam, because those are channeled abilities. Let's put on Overflowing Altar, because this is a channeled ability, and see how this works. Normally, you cannot block cancel channeled abilities. So like if you see here, I'll start it. Oh, never mind. It's the other way around. You can block cancel channeled abilities, I think, unless it's being weird. Let me put on Meditate. So if I meditate, yeah, okay. So you can block cancel, you can't roll dodge cancel, that's what it is. So if you see, I'm spamming my roll dodge button and I'm not moving. So similarly, if I cast Blood Altar, if I roll dodge, okay, what the fuck, Blood Altar? Okay, so Meditate and Blood Altar apparently act differently. So Meditate can't roll dodge cancel, can bar swap cancel. Blood Altar can roll dodge cancel, can block cancel, and I believe you can't bar swap cancel Blood Altar. Okay, so that's super weird. That explains a lot of the reasons why I've died while channeling Blood Altar, because you can't bar swap cancel it. Okay, so learn something new every day. But, so yeah, mess around with whatever channeled abilities you use, figure out what can and can't cancel it. Like you can't light attack cancel it, things like that. But you can out of Meditate. So, yeah, it's probably a difference between Meditate is considered a channel, while Blood Altar is considered a cast time. But like I said, I'm not entirely sure. So just go through and check your abilities. Like I said, Jabs and Jesus Beam are the two important ones to check there. But yeah, I believe that is all I have to say. Oh, I did want to talk about bar swap canceling. So bar swap will cancel the animation for an ability, even if you couldn't otherwise cancel it. So let's put back on a bow and show it with some of the bow abilities. So Endless Hail is the most obvious one with this. So if you Endless Hail, that's as fast as you can go normally. But if I put Venom Claw on my other bar, if I'm not in combat, wait to be out of combat, come on, game. There we go. Wait to be out of combat. And I put Venom Bar on my back bar instead of my front bar. You'll see that I can actually cancel the animation for Endless Hail. Could not remember the name. And do this process a little bit faster. It's very similar to block canceling. In fact, it might actually be exactly the same. So it's not super important, and with some abilities, if you see, I'm going to put on Eruption, which means we got to wait for combat again. Eruption is an ability that can be cancelled. Not just the animation can be cancelled, but the actual ability itself can be cancelled with block canceling or bar swap canceling. So I might not get it this first time. It can be a little finicky, but I'm going to press Eruption and then I'm going to immediately bar swap, and you'll see that Eruption won't go down. So it went off that time. Man, is this game just going to make me look like a liar? There we go. That time I canceled it. So you see, I cast it and it just didn't do anything. My action duration reminder still thinks it's active, but I promise you there's no effect there. It's not a visual bug. It's not doing damage. Okay, anyways, I got it to show the one time. That's what matters. But basically, abilities like this can be canceled. It looks difficult to cast and to do it, but believe me, when you're doing rotations and you cast this ability several hundred, several thousand times, it happens and it's noticeable and you lose a big chunk of your damage. Another ability that this happens a lot on is actually the Storm Atronach, the Magicka Sorcerer ultimate. When that thing can be cancelled really easily by bar swap. And so then you don't have your ultimate until the next time you're on that bar, and you're wasting ulti and your damage is just lower because of it. But basically the thing I wanted to get to is that if you have a long animation, like Warhorn is a good example, if you light attack, use the ability, and then switch, it'll go off, and you can be on your other bar. For tanks, that's important because you can be on your sword and shield bar, which you'll move faster while blocking, take less damage if you're using a lightning staff or something like that. And then if you don't have an ability with a long animation, like for example Venom Claw's got a super quick animation, after the ability happens you can light attack, bar swap, and then light attack again. You can see that you can do that almost instantly. Because you can essentially have the cooldown for the light attack be the same length that your light attack cooldown is and your bar swap animation. And so I see a lot of new players, when they're weaving, they'll go through, they'll put down their abilities, they'll weave really well, they'll cast their ability, and then they'll just swap and then start with another ability here. I definitely focus on weaving. Because that's another 2 free weaves that you get for basically nothing. It doesn't slow down your rotation any, and it just adds in 2 more light attacks. I think I've gotten a little bit rambly here, as always it feels like. But I hope that you guys found something helpful in this video, and if not, please ask comments, message me, all that good stuff, and I will do my best to answer them. And If you have questions about how many light attacks you should be getting or how to record light attacks or things like that, be sure to check out my combat metrics video that I just did. Otherwise, I hope you all have a great day and learn something. Bye bye.